Hey, what's going on, everybody? Right now, the prices are kind of flat today, semi up, semi down. So, not really much has changed, right? We got the weekly close, very positive, very bullish. So, I'm going to start real quick here with XRP. Obviously, we're looking at this massive situation here, comparing it to what happened back over here, right? So the rise, the crash, the retrace, the reaccumulation, right? Sideways, blast off, rise, crash, retrace, reaccumulation, sideways. Are we going to get the blast off? Let's figure that out. In my opinion, Bitcoin gets that fifth wave to the upside and we clear 71, 72 and start to go in expansion, then absolutely. I mean, looking at XRP right now, I mean, it's one of the few coins that are actually up today. I mean, you can see it's up 3.25%. CRV's down about almost 5%. Theta's down a little more than 4%. Bitcoin's about flat. So not much. Matic 1.5, 2.5. So it's pretty much down today. You could see total 3, right, which is the entire altcoin market is a little bit down. But that's what we've been going up quite a bit. So I'm expecting a pullback here, and that's what I really want to jump into. So let me get to XRP. Let me get that out of the way real quick. So looking at XRP, obviously it's up today and the rest of the market's down. And trying to figure out, well, why is that? Well, because in my opinion, this little move here was finishing up the B wave. Either that or it's in a wave 3 of 5, which I don't think so. But, it's all about, can we get through those retracement levels? So if I put the retracement here, we're basically, flirting with that 786, right? But even if we do break out, it could still be even a flat or something like that. So here's what I think. So we have a 1, 2, and then all of this is 3, 4, and 5, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then we came down in an A wave, right? And now we have a 3-wave move back to the upside, right? That's wave B. So that's wave A. This is wave B. So, B can actually come up and break the top as long as it has its 3-wave shape, right? If it turns into a 4 and a 5, then I'm going to be looking at that as a 5th wave. But right now, I got to treat it as a B wave, right? Because I only have a 3-wave shape. So then the expectation would be what? To get some kind of move like this over here, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It could be a flat, right? It could be a running flat, something like this, or even further down like this. Basically an ABC, right? So A, B, C, a 3-wave move, right? And what that's going to do is basically correct for wave 1, right? Because we're treating this as a wave 1, right? So when I zoom out, where is that wave 1 coming from? It's coming from this 3-wave pullback right here. So A, right? And then you have this as a B, so I'll put that right there. And then we come down here for C. That's a 3-wave shape. Now, when you look at it from that perspective, it's simple, right? It's a 3-wave shape. But inside, there's a bunch of noise, right? You have all these complex wave structures. But if you just ignore all that and just go from point, right? From point to point to point to point, then you draw your line. That's a 3-wave shape. And then off of that 3-wave shape, We have a 5-wave move to the upside. That's pretty important to me, because that tells me, right? And not only this is a 3-wave shape, but this is a 1 year long. This is a 1 year 3-wave correction. That is huge. So just imagine all of that pent up, demand, right? It's like a marathon, one of the best athletes in the world resting for like 3 months. And he's like, okay, I'm fully rested. I'm ready to go, right? Like he's super, like there's a lot of pent up demand, in my opinion, what's happening here. So we have this 5-wave shape, right? And when you look at it from the daily, and this will give me my lead into my second idea, is that the 5-wave move, instead of this being an ABC, it's not finished, right? So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we're going to get 5. So that's probably more likely. It really depends on Bitcoin, and we're going to jump into Bitcoin. So, and for that, let me actually zoom in so I can explain a little bit better here. So really there's 2 ideas here with XRP, and both of them are actually pretty bullish. So obviously the first idea, right, is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, A, B, C, right? And this would be wave 1, this is wave 2, and then we're going to go up and get that hopefully monster wave 3. Okay? So that's the idea. Now the other idea is to say it's the same thing, except we still need another hit to the high. So it'd be 1, 2, right? And then inside wave 3, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So all of that's wave 3. So 1, 2, all of this is wave 3. And now it looks like either this could be a wave 4, something like this, right? Or we can have a 1, 2, maybe this pulls up another 1, 2, and then we come up and hit the high for a wave 5. And then we get the ABC. You see what I mean? So at the end of the day, it's like, well, we should be getting close to a wave 2 pullback. Now, if this thing completely rips to the upside, let me just go to the daily here. Or actually the 3-day chart. You can see some pretty powerful green candles in there, right? Even the 4-day chart, I mean, look at that. That's pretty bullish, right? So if this thing continues to break out, which we don't really want it to, kind of, there's a little bit of a debate out there, like, okay, if we break this support or this resistance, then we better hold it, right? Because that's always the fear here. Like, if this comes up and it breaks it, it's going to, by that time, it's going to have lost so much momentum, it's going to come back down, and it could be very weak. Versus actually coming up to it and then pulling back, right? Getting a flag here and then breaking out, right? Because then you have a lot more wiggle room, right? Because, for example, if we came up and just broke out right away, then we would have to, we don't have to, but you would really want the price to then hold above it, right? If you're going to break out and be a show off, right? And you're showing off in front of everybody, you better, or, how people like these UFC fighters, they talk all this crap and then they get out there and they get their butt whooped, right? So, if you're going to talk and you're going to be a show off and you're going to break out, you better damn well hold that back test zone. And that's the riskier play, right? Because if it doesn't hold it and it comes back down below it, it can still break out, but you just increase the risk of it being a trap, right? So, but that being said, we want our wave 1, which is this here, to be as strong as possible, right? Because if this, we want our third wave to not have as basically as little resistance as possible. And when I put the retracement from here to here, right? Let me actually flip that to log scale. There we go. You can see we hit the 618, but really we want, you know, somewhere around that 50, right? And, you know, that's basically all I would want for that wave one. So between here and that 75 cent area, flag out, and then your wave three can challenge these areas up there, right? But that's the overall fib levels. But when we're just talking about this level here, right? I mean, we're literally right there, right? So as far as like the 618 goes, if you can get, like I've said, a wave one breaking above the 50 and the 618, then that means your wave three has a better chance at breaking all of these, if that makes sense. So anyways, that's all I'll say about that. Let's jump to Bitcoin here. So for Bitcoin, obviously, you know, we're looking at this as a fourth wave, right? For those of you that are new here, welcome. But basically, you know, we're looking at these two areas as the same degree, right? So we have a wave one, and this is a wave two, right? Obviously, this is a wave three, and this rectangle here is a wave four. So the two and the four, right, are the same, right? They're in that same degree, which is what we want to see. Why does this matter? Because it increases the likelihood of a fifth wave, which then increases the likelihood of, well, definitely expansion, which then increases the likelihood of the alts going into expansion, which then increases the likelihood of an alt season, which then increases the likelihood that we're going to actually make a lot of money. So just get ready for that. You know, it's all about being properly positioned as well. So, you know, but what if we don't make any money? What if this is a big trap and it just has the appearance of a fourth wave, right? And they make it look very bullish because it does, right? It has that beautiful ABC pullback. It has a big wave one, right? If we flag out and continue higher, and that's just what it looks, right? But what if we come up here and we keep going without pulling back and getting that flag out? Then it runs the risk of what? Wyckoff distribution. See what I mean? So then it basically is just a straight shot up and then it just drizzles down. So we don't want it to keep going up. We want it to stall out. We want to see a bullish correction, right? Something like this, or even something like this. You can see here was a wave one right here, right? This was a wave one. This is a wave two. But if this wave one kept going like this, right? And it, let's say it took these highs, then it's probably just going to collapse because it looked like, you know, they were targeting liquidity here, right? But if we get a correction, right? That's why we say bullish correction, because it's, you know, a correction is the best thing the price can do before obviously it pumps to the upside. It needs that sort of it needs that flag right here. It needs it, right? Because that resets everything for it to continue higher, right? It resets the oscillators, it resets the momentum. But if it just keeps pumping, then it's going to seem too trappy. It's going to seem too good to be true, right? And people are going to get too bullish. People are going to over leverage too much, which then becomes what? A long squeeze, right? Just like a short squeeze, you get a long squeeze. So I would expect us to get resistance up here, right? We actually want resistance up here. and then we want it to flag out, right? That's what we want. Because again, if it keeps going, it's not going to, I mean, it's possible, right? I'm just saying if it does that, it just increases the risk of a long squeeze. So we don't want that, right? So we want the correction. So let me show you what that could look like on the 4-hour time frame. So obviously we've been looking at this as a 5-wave move, right? 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? You can also say 1, 2, right? All of this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? Then we get 4, then we get 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That all of that's 3. So 1, 1, 2. All of that's 3, 4, and then 5. But either way, I think we're getting close. So what I'm looking here on the 4-hour time frames is I'm starting to see what could be potentially a leading diagonal here, and that's sometimes common in a 5th wave, right, where you kind of get like a rising wedge type of thing. You're kind of getting wedged in here. So this could be, right, again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? So if this is the 5th wave, let's do some work on that 5th wave and see what are our options really. But before I do that, let me just take a Fibonacci extension here. Actually, I'm going to do it from the bottom of this wave 2 to the top of this wave 3 and pull it down. So somewhere around 70.5K could be a good spot, for a wave 5. So let me just put that up there. I'll just put this right about here. So it gives us a little bit of a zone to work with. Yeah, so now let me zoom in. Let's go to the 1-hour chart. And you can kind of see, right? Obviously, we have a lot of bearish divergence, and that's typical. And that's, when people say bearish divergence, they kind of get scared and they run away, right? But that's what you expect in a 5th wave, and that's what you want in a 5th wave, right? Because this is a technical indicator to tell you, hey, we should be getting a pullback soon, right? Especially on the 4-hour chart. Let me just draw some lines here and just connect these lines. You can see, right? Obviously, you're bumping your head. You're bumping your head, right? And then we have another one. You can kind of do it like this, right? And it doesn't necessarily have to respect the lines, right? They're just lines, but it kind of gives you that wedge impression. And then obviously the RSI is going down, right? And this is going up. So it's giving you that bearish divergence. So far we have about maybe 2 hits, right? So this thing can, if this is a diagonal, then I'm trying to think where I would count it from. I guess from here. I mean, it could be finished 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? I mean, I guess you can say that's finished, and then you get that bigger correction, right? Another way you can say is that, when I zoom into the 1-hour chart, if the 3rd wave, right, ended here, then you can say it's the diagonal. But to me, since this is a 5-wave move, I'm going to say the 3rd wave ended there. And this is the 4th wave. And now we're in the progress of that 5th wave. So that's how I'm looking at it, something like this. So now we established that. And you can also see the bearish divergence on the 1-hour, obviously, right? If it's on the 4-hour, it's most likely on the 1-hour. So then what I would do is I would start my diagonal, right? If you don't know what a diagonal is, just go to Google, type in Elliott wave diagonal pattern, and it'll tell you have a leading diagonal, an ending diagonal, right? Sometimes they're referred to as a rising wedge, a falling wedge, depending, how you look at it. But here's you got a little 1 2 1 2 here, and I'm looking at this kind of like 1 2 3. So that would be kind of like 1, and then you kind of want 2, 3, 4, and then 5. And when you look at it like that, that's kind of how it gives me the impression, right? So then it kind of gives you that sort of bear flag look to it, where it's not letting traders in, right? Because a trader, they want an ABC pullback, they want a correction, they want a discount. But when the discount keeps coming in at a higher low above the fourth wave, it kind of, they're kind of waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting, right? So you draw a little channel here, you can see what I mean. But essentially, that's what a diagonal does. It kind of gives you the impression it's not going to stop, right? It kind of slowly grinds up here, and then it respecting this line. Sometimes it'll overshoot it, right? Getting people more bullish, and then it comes back down in a big way and actually resets the price. Probably, let me zoom out now. So if I say that would be the case, right, then you can look at it from a retracement perspective. Let's say we get up here and hit that. It's going to be tough. I would imagine somewhere here, around that 69, 70K area, without breaking this top. I don't want it to break the top, because when you break the top and then you quickly pull in a fifth wave, right? We want to break out of here, right? A lot of people won't tell you that. A lot of people want you to go now, 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 now. But the problem is when you break out of this, right, you're doing so on a wave 1, wave 5 of wave 1. You don't want that, because then you still need that correction. And if you come up and you tap into that liquidity, now you're bringing it back underneath the water, right? It's like you stick your head above water and then only to go back under the water, right? So anyways, it's just, we're just going to have to wait and see how this continues to form. But essentially, something like that, where we would then get a pullback. So another way we can kind of look at that is that the wave 2, now I'm not really a hardcore expert on diagonals, but I guess I would say 1, and then this was sort of an expanded flat here for wave 2, because a diagonal, they get shorter, right? And obviously a wave 3, and this is 1, 2, let's come up for 3, then we pull back for 4, and then we get one more for 5. So yeah, I think that would be a little more plausible. If this is a diagonal, it might not be. I'm just giving you an idea here based off sort of the shape that it's kind of giving me. But I think the most simple way to do it would be, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we come up and hit 5. So, or even the 5th could be truncated. It could be done now. But I think we're going to come up here, right? Take the high one more time, and then it will be a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it would be that leading diagonal. We don't want wave 5 to be bigger than wave 3. Wave 3 cannot be the shortest wave in a diagonal. And then we would come back down in a big ABC, something like that, right? And that's where we get our flag, and that's where the magic happens. That's where most people are going to be buying up in here, right? But that's why, you subscribe to my channel. You already know all of that. So if you haven't done so, definitely do so, because this is a big moment for crypto, and you definitely want to stay informed, because I'll be pretty much tackling the wave structure week by week and a lot of times day by day. So, things happen quick, right? I mean, remember when we were back here, we were falling. Literally a day later, we had retraced almost 50% of that wave. And I said, look what, how much a day can make a difference, right? A lot can happen in one day, right? So 1 minute, everybody's so bearish. And then the next minute, you're up 10, 15%. And then it's like, hey, nothing happened. So, and that's usually a common occurrence here in crypto, right? So I think, from a market maker look, I think they're gonna probably go with this diagonal, because I think they're giving the impression that it's a fourth wave. For example, 1, 2, 3, and I think people think we're in the third. We're gonna get 4, and then 5, and then the big ABC. So I think that's kind of the picture they're painting, but I think that this is probably the fifth here, right? And then we get that ABC. People will think it's wave 4, then we come up in wave 5. And it very well could be, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? And then we get the big ABC or flagging out. So, depending how the shape looks, right? We could get something that looks like that, where instead of the ending diagonal being in the fifth, we actually have the ending diagonal being at the end of the third, or the leading diagonal being at the end of the third. Sorry. We get back up here, right? And then we start to have a flag. We start flagging out in here and then break out. That's really kind of the main idea in a sense. Now, I don't know if this is the end of the fifth or the end of the third. But I think it really doesn't matter, because either way, we're expecting a bigger correction here soon. So hopefully that helped everybody out. Let's see how this forms. Again, we got bearish divergence. So, but that doesn't mean the altcoins, right? Because sometimes you get bearish divergence, and when Bitcoin corrects and it kind of goes sideways and just meanders about, sometimes you can get big pops in the altcoins, right? So Ethereum kind of has that similar look, where it could be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? And now we're getting 4, and then we come up and get 5, right? So it looks like you have a shoulder, you have a head, and you have another shoulder here. So I'm expecting a little bit more correcting in here, right? If we come up and pop the high, then for sure I'm expecting a correction. So and now when we go back to XRP, right, we just talked about it. Now that sort of set the stage for what could happen here, right? So again, is this an A, B, C? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The problem with it is, look at this. You can see wave 2 is pretty small, right? And then when you look at wave 3, it's pretty big. So it's a little bit out of proportion, which tells me that the fifth wave is probably in, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So the fifth wave is in based off proportionality, right? This is not financial advice. This is not me knowing exactly the answer. This is not me predicting exactly what's going to happen. This is me looking at something and giving you my best educated guess, right? I shouldn't say guess. It's more than a guess, right? It's a probable outcome. But at the end of the day, this is the small time frame stuff. This is one wave in a big picture, right? A massive picture. And when you look at the massive picture, it doesn't really matter what happens minute by minute per se, the reason I like to cover it daily is because, if you're like me, crypto is your passion. And why would it be your passion? Because to me, crypto is an instrument, a vessel, and it's the only opportunity a lot of us have to make something of ourselves, right? I said the other day, the most important asset on planet Earth is your time. And how you spend that time is up to you, right? But most of us have to do things we don't want to do, like go to work, right? Do things that, we don't necessarily want to do, right? Most people would want to do things they want to do, especially with their family. And the best opportunity we can do, right? The best situation is to have crypto, right? Be a vessel for that time. That doesn't mean like we're all going to be millionaires and we can quit and retire. Maybe some of us, right? But at least it can help a lot out, right? If people are trying to buy a house for the first time, I think crypto is going to be one of the biggest keys to unlock people's first home, right? So I don't know how many people out there own houses, but I wouldn't think too many people own houses. I bought my first house in 2015 and I lived there for 7 years and I sold it, right? Why did I sell it? Because the house doubled in value and the interest rates were rising and I felt like I got to get out of the housing market. Now I could be dead wrong. The housing market could not, maybe it won't crash, right? But I'm basically sitting on the cash waiting until an opportunity comes up where I can buy another house, right? So basically, I'm a trader. I put everything on the line, right? Having a house and having that equity is like everything in the world, right? And for me to sell it, that was a very tough decision. But you know what? I was able to buy a little more crypto, right? I was able to pay off some debts, right? I won't get into all that, but essentially, I definitely had to make sacrifices. So what I'm saying is, at the end of the day, it's all about your time, and the best way you can spend that time is based off how much freedom you have, and that really comes down to how much money you have. And it sucks to say that, but at the end of the day, money is cash rules everything. So, and we're not going to be a famous Hollywood actor. We're not going to be some mega entrepreneur. Maybe you will, right? Or start a business. A lot of us don't have what it takes. I don't think I have what it takes to start my own business. I mean, it's a lot of stress. It's a lot of work. It's just a lot. And then you have to have a good plan, and it might not work, right? If you created something, you invented something, maybe go for it. Definitely go for it. But if you're like me and you want to sort of stay a little bit more content, then crypto is the answer, right? I can stay at home. I can just go on my phone and buy crypto and just let it ride, right? It might take a couple years. It might take longer than that. But at the end of the day, what else is your money going to do? Sit in the bank doing nothing? That's the way I look at it. So that's why, for me, very passionate about crypto. I believe in it long term, right? And you got to be semi, nerdy about it, right? Because at the end of the day, it's technology. We're not investing in some coin. We're investing in the technology, right? It's a big deal. And I think the banks know it's a big deal. That's why they try to downplay it for the last 10 years. Oh, it's just a bubble. Oh, it's this, it's that, it's whatever, right? It's the tulip mania. But it's much more than that. It's technology that can totally revolutionize finance, right? Decentralized finance, payments, right? Basically a lot of different things. So, well, you can say, well, how come that's not the case? Why don't we see that? Well, because we need regulations. We need things in place so that people can play by the rules and we know what the rules are, right? You don't have these big hedge fund, big multi-billion-dollar, you know, institutional investors or whatever, right? And a lot of it is coming online, but you know, it's a slow burn. But once we get real regulation, I think it's going to really unlock a massive, value through utility, through investing, through many, many things. And it's just all in due time. I think people buy crypto and it goes down and they say it's never going to go back up, right? I mean, look at this torture here. You're here, imagine buying XRP in 2020. You had a big bear market, you thought you got a good deal, you went all the way up, everything else, right, went to the moon, but XRP only went up here. And then you had to deal with another long bear market. You came down, or actually reaccumulation, you came here. So you're like, okay, we pull back, let's go. But no, you just went sideways. Okay, let's go. No, you're going sideways again. And then you come back up, and then now you have to come all the way back down. It's like torture. But at the end of the day, you have to let it do its thing, right? The price knows exactly what it wants to do. So as, you know, people who are on the street who do like these artists, like these paintings, they start off and you look at the painting and it looks like, you know, a trash can. But then like 30 seconds later, it looks like a Picasso painting. Like, whoa, where did that come from? And that's kind of what charts look like, right? At first, they look like a disaster. But then once that disaster is printed, then that's where the magic kind of happens, right? That's all I'll say on that. But anyways, I ranted long enough. Let's continue on here. Matic, you know, what can I say? We're down here at support, right? Oh, and by the way, here's a really good example of why we don't want it to break the Bitcoin, right? Remember when I was talking about Bitcoin here and saying right here where we don't want the wave one to break above this high without first kind of getting a flag here? Obviously, you know, we can break it like this, but then we can correct like this. That's okay. But if we break it, we quickly come back in. That's more bearish. So for example, when you look at Matic, it basically did the same thing, but opposite. So what I'll do is I'll flip the chart upside down. So here we go. So look at this. You can say, well, if this was a wave one, look what we did. We took the top out. But look, we got strongly rejected here. So, but that's actually bullish because it's upside down. So I flip it right side up, right? And it actually, to me, looked like a liquidity grab. So now we're down here at support, right? And you can see that big wick down there, right? And we basically broke that area. And as soon as we did, all that liquidity got absorbed, right? So, you know, from there, right, we're building a base, and eventually we're going to get back up here. So between this area, right? Now how long that takes, what that'll look like, well, again, we're just going to have to wait on Bitcoin and see how it continues to develop. But all in all, right, when I look at something like Matic on the smaller time frames, I kind of wanted a 5-wave move here. I mean, it's, you know, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? It kind of looks like a diagonal here, right? So now looks like you're getting a 3-way pullback, and this is exactly, it's like playing out exactly how we thought here. So I'm expecting a move down, and that would be a really good buy, I think. Not just for Matic, but for many coins that look like that, right? QNT actually looks really bullish right now, to be honest. I would still wait, though, for Bitcoin to pull back, but it kind of looks like it needs to hit the high and then come down, kind of like this, and then go. So we'll see. Algorand kind of have a double top here. I want to see a correction, really. I mean, that's just really for me to get excited. XLM, 1 2 1 2 3 4 5 4 5. I mean, we can get something like that, or the fifth can be here, and this is the start of the ABC, and then up, right? So I'm just kind of doing a little rapid fire here. ADA, same thing, kind of had a little double top here. 1 2 3 4 5. Again, ABC, or hit the high and then ABC. Kind of tough one here. But when you come down here, right, here's what I'll say. When ADA came down, right, pretty hard, and then it shot back up, taking out this high, and now it's sort of consolidating here, right, after it broke this, I would like to see it come back down and retest it, right? Give me the three-wave shape that ADA deserves, ABC. If we can get that, that would be a good opportunity. But right now, I wouldn't long it. I wouldn't even short it. I would just kind of wait and see, because it just looks a little bit sloppy. And when it looks sloppy, that means it's probably not finished, right? Again, Bitcoin looks like a diagonal here. It's getting tighter and tighter, and eventually it gets so tight that it just breaks out. And usually it'll break down. And when it breaks down, everyone's going to flip out. Oh, look, it's over. I see, I told you. But they really don't understand that it needs to do this. It needs to reset, right? So even though I'm extremely bullish, right, on the overall picture, I still want this correction, right? And that will make me even more bullish. So, you know, CRV kind of got a little head and shoulders going on here, right? If I take that there, just giving me a rough estimate here, somewhere about 25 cents. You know, there's a few ways you could have looked at it, right? Like 1 2 3 4 5, A, B, C, and then this is another 1 2. We're about to get 3 4 5. I don't really like it a lot, because I don't like how this wave 2, it looks a little too impulsive for me to get on board with that. But yeah, I want to see this finish here. So we have an A, right? If this came at 1 2 3 4 5, so if this was the fifth, 1 2 3 4 5, and this is an A, and this is a B, then this should be a C, something like that, which gets us down here. And if we get down here, that would be a good buy, right? I did say Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday could be a good sell-off day, right? But again, I also said it could be also bullish too, depending if, going back to Bitcoin, depending if Bitcoin was finished or not, right? But since it's forming this diagonal here, what it seems to be, right? 1 2 3 4 5, it sort of looks like it needs to finish, and then we should get that correction. So anyways, let's get on with Theta here. Now Theta definitely, by the way, here was our fractal here that we had, and we were looking at this 5-wave move right here, not sort of from a structure perspective, but more from like a time perspective. So if I put it down, you can see the timing of it kind of matches up pretty well, but you can see we had that correction here. So what I can do is expand it a little bit, and, you know, something like that. And that kind of gives us an idea of what we could look at, right? So if we get some big move to the downside and we come down here, that's going to be bullish. It's going to be very bullish. So, but anyway, Theta, I just don't like how, you know, when you see an impulse, you want it to sort of break the lines here. But if the lines are sort of horizontal or vertical, right? You know, I guess straight, then, you know, there's always a risk that it could be a bear flag, right? So a bear flag meaning we're flagging out to the downside, right? So when I flip it upside down, you have an impulse and we're flagging out, we're about to break out. Now, do I think that's the case? No, I don't think that's going to be the case, but I do know that this is not sustainable. It's a lot of overlap, right? So when we saw this one, for example, and I draw a line here, right? You can see it also matches up, but there wasn't too much overlapping, I guess you could say. Let's see another example here. When we first start out, right, you can see this one was more impulsive here, right? But no overlapping, right? So it was much more of an impulse. Whereas now, it looks a little bit more corrective to me. But that being said, you know, we still have a good amount of waves here. We still have a good 5-wave move. And that's the thing. If it's in the shape of a diagonal, it's going to look corrective, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So then we get A, B, C, right? Something like that. And that would be a diagonal because it's kind of overlapping. And then we get that break to the upside. And then what does that look like now? It looks like a shoulder, a head, and a shoulder. An inverse head and shoulder. So what would the measured move be? Well, it'd be approximately, it would get us back up to, you know, this $2.20 area, right? So yesterday I said, look, for Theta, we have, you know, this gap here. Let me actually turn on the daily. So there's a gap right here and right here. You can see there's no trading in there. Like here you have a big cluster of candles. You have a big cluster of candles, right? But there is a gap. So essentially, when Theta breaks it, it was looking like it was going to break it yesterday. But again, I said I wouldn't long it there because it's too risky. I would wait either until it breaks out and backtest or just not do it at all. But essentially from that yellow zone to this yellow zone, there's a gap. So what I'm saying right now is when we pull back here and we break above this yellow zone, it's going to be a straight shot to there from here to here. And then the idea would be to come back and fill in those gaps with a cluster of candles, right? So you have a little bit more support going higher. And what that could do is shape up into a 1-2-1-2. I really like that a lot. So you have a 1-2, the first diagonal, and then you have another 1-2 to fill in that gap. That means that this wave wouldn't be the third wave. Instead, it would be another 1-2, which then would result into a massive wave 3, right? Similar to, let's see, is there an example somewhere here? Yeah, right here you can see it. So here's a really good example, by the way, where we come down, right, and we have a 1 2, and then we come up 1 2, which would set up a big third wave. So if we get a 1 2 1 2, I mean, that is it. My main idea. So far, I wouldn't say that's my main idea, but I would say that we will get this correction. Now, provided if we get this correction and we break above this yellow area, I think that would be very possible if we get a 1 2 1 2, right? And essentially, this whole thing is a 1 2 1 2, right? So that would be a massive, massive, massive wave. So when I zoom out even further, we can see, is there any gaps? No. So you can see Theta actually filled in the gap. So okay, look at this. So this is a really interesting thing. So that example that I just used, I just told you here, right? Basically the gap between the bottom of this and the top of this, you could see when we broke that line, it was a straight shot up. And then when we broke below the line, it was a straight shot down. So the idea is to pull back, to break out, to then come up to this line and then come back and fill in the gap, then go, right? So that's the idea. So when you zoom all the way out, that's exactly what happened on the larger time frames, right? So that's exactly what's happening here. So you can see right here, it was a straight shot up, and right here it was a straight shot down. You can see that, right? So then we came down, right, in a Wyckoff. We came up and we got rejected here. This is like where we are now, right? So we're coming up and we hit this first line. It looks like it's going to break out, but it pulls back. That's exactly where we are now. And then what does it do? And then it comes up, it takes out this line, and it's a straight shot up, right? Because remember, there's no volume profile, there's no profile. So there's basically an air pocket, an open, like a gap, right? So it's boom, it's a straight shot. So then what happens? So then what it does is it pulls back in an ABC, and it comes back and it back tests this area. Now we have trading volume right where these gaps should be. So you see the circle here, here, and here. Now you can see we actually have support. We actually have volume profile. We actually have a structure. We actually have that gap filled. So now we have that 1 2 1 2. So now when we start to take off, right, we don't have to worry about going back and filling those gaps, right? So now the next area would be about that $4, about that $4 area, similar to about where that high is, but essentially getting back to that $8 area. So now the only thing we have to worry about is this cluster here, right? So right now we're working on filling the gap, which we already did. This part right here for Theta was the Wyckoff, basically your bottom, your accumulation structure. And right down here, that's where I first did the video, right at 64 cents, saying what? We're heading higher. And that's exactly what we've been doing this whole time, has been heading higher, right? Obviously, we've been in this correction for a while, but it needed it, right? Because why? It needed to come down here and back test, number one. Number two, it needed to fill in these gaps. And number three, right, obviously Bitcoin and the rest of the market needed the correction as well. So yeah, upside is definitely on the table. So anyways, by the way, that's exactly what happened to Theta Fuel here. You can see we came straight up, so there's no volume profile. So here's a gap, and then when we broke below, here's another gap here, right? So there's basically empty space right here, right? So then here's your bottom, and then what did Theta Fuel do? It came up and it touched the top here, basically went right up there, and then it came back down to back test the top. So here's your bottom, here's your top. So then when you break out, that's the top, and now you're gonna come back to the bottom, which is really the top now, right? You're back testing it, and then you can come out. So then you fill in that gap. So up, down, up, right? So now you got volume in there, you got structure in there, right? And then the idea is to break out. So since there's no gaps up here, you can see there's the line there, you can see the cluster of candles. You can see right here, it was a straight shot up, but then when we came down, we sort of filled in that gap going the opposite direction, right? So now we don't have to worry about gaps anymore after breaking out. Now it's just regular resistance, and then we can be on our way, right? Or, right, this can, obviously we're not in the retracement levels yet, but when we get up there, then it can probably go into reaccumulation and then break out, right? Or it can flag out, then break out. Whatever the case may be, it's going to have some struggles up there. Now, if we get a full-blown alt season, we might have enough exuberance to get us through it relatively easy. So we'll just have to see how it rolls. So anyways, that should wrap it up here. Looking at XRP dominance, right? You can see that's a big drop. And now you can see there's a big, right, all this open space between here and sort of here, right? So there's some empty space. So I would imagine it getting back up here, then coming back down, fill that gap, and then continue higher. So anyways, that'll do it for this video. Thanks for tuning in. There's still a lot to go over on a few different things I want to touch on, but I'll save it for the next video. Anyways, appreciate if you can hit that like button, really helps out, and subscribe if you haven't already. And also, you know, the notification settings really help out too if you want to be one of the first to watch the video, because again, crypto moves fast, and I think we're going to want to stay right on it. So when we expect that next move, you know what I mean? So anyways, I'll see you on the next one. Cheers.